Hi, Sean. Welcome to BIM's Event Talks.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, happy to see you here. So you work at the marketing event agency and you business event strategist. But please tell me, how did you come to the industry? How all that began?
Oh yeah, of course. My name is Sean Chen. For those watching, I am a senior strategist with Dahlia Plus Agency. Dahlia Plus Agency are a brand marketing and experience agency that we serve client from marketing need to events need to strategy needs. I think for us, this is really about empower our client to be better at what they are doing and help them to deliver a best result that they cannot imagine before. And before Dahlia Plus, I was with another agency for a very long time. The agency is a full service event agency, and then so I was. Event planner, quote unquote event planner for a very long time, specialized in international conference and convention for different associations, but do have the opportunity to work on corporate events, incentive, and all the other. I kind of have my hands on all the other events. And period to that, I was actually at a destination marketing agency. So not agency, destination marketing organization. So CMO and CVB. So in the tourism bureau, that based in Canada, and that also lasts for a few years. So if you're looking at that, like you can see my career having, I will say, a touch on all the different angle in the industry, because event industry or so-called business event industry is a very broad term. It kind of on
Mm-hmm.
the service of a lot of different industry, and I will say I have the fortune and very lucky to be able to experience all the different sectors throughout my career. But with that long answer, to back to what your original answer is, how I started in a career. I actually started in a restaurant as a dishwasher,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh,
then
wow.
tapping into hotel as a banquet server, and so that's kind of how I started. So really, really from the ground, but have the fortune to be who I am today.
Okay. Actually, very very event person, I would say, since you have lots of job regarding to the events, and you called yourself business strategist. And I want to ask, maybe the question would be a little bit weird for you, but I very often I hear strategy and event strategy, but actually what is it like? Um, when I am just a marketer and I know that I need to organize the event, uh, actually I don't have any big document with a strategy. So what does it actually mean? What strategists do? How all this works?
Well, I will say that though, and no, typically as an event person or a marketer, for that way,
Mm-hmm.
I think we are too soon to jump the gun to execution. I think
Mm-hmm.
most of the marketer and event professional are really good at making things happen. You are making good at execution, very good at logistic, very detail orientated. Everyone is a type person, but what I think what we're missing here is just to take a breath, and do a little step back before we do anything, and just thinking about what is the purpose and
Mm-hmm.
why we're doing it, who
Mm-hmm.
we are serving, right? Ask the why, who, and then that will lead to the what and how question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, I think that will, in my opinion, um, that will make our life easier and more clear when we are in the middle of 20 different things, right? I think as for those who are listening, I will assume you are a marketer or you are event professional, then this is probably a very common thing for you is you go into the office or you open the laptop at your home. Then every day you got 20 to 50 email coming when you open it. And then at the end of the day, you probably still have 10 to 20 have an answer, plus tomorrow going to have another 50 coming in. You're juggling with probably not one, two things. You're juggling between 10 to 20 different things. And everything seems very important because everyone will come to you is I need this now, like why this is not going out, right? And I think very soon, very easy, we are overwhelmed and we kind of get lost on what are the important things. And by asking those questions on why we're doing it and who we are serving and what is the purpose, those will help us, at least internally, to prioritize what are the important things. And that is strategy.
Okay, so it's goals and audience, I would say. Okay, and you believe in the importance of digital first strategy, as I know. Can you explain what does it mean and how it can be deployed to the events?
Yeah, no, definitely. And so today we're talking about event strategy, which if you're using a more easy term is how are we gonna do with our event, right? And in the past 2 years, I think is whether you like it or not is unfortunately they are only digital, right? And even you never done digital event before, then suddenly it is a digital event that you need to learn and adapt. But then, like I think this year we see a lot of the discussion and different organizations taking a different decision approach is whether they are continuing the digital path or they are going back to what they was before the pandemic and fully in person. And some of the organizations starting to experience the mix combination, which we call hybrid, right? Like you have a bit in person and then but also have the digital component. None of those are wrong decision. I think everything is the right decision. But I think what we are missing, I think what a lot of the planner organization are missing is they are too bogged down on choose which one. They kind of like in the mindset, all right, I need to decide whether I'm going fully virtual or in person or hybrid, right? That sounds like the obvious choice and they need to make the choice. Back to what we discussed earlier is why mindset and purpose and strategy is important, right? In my opinion, you should take a step back and ask, what is my audience want? And what are the reality that I am facing? Because I think every organization are facing different reality. And why I host this event to my audience. And if you ask all those three questions, I think it will come down to a very clear discovery that you're probably not thinking about is your audience are digital first audience. No matter which organization you are, which professional you are, human beings today are digital first. The first thing you wake up is to check your phone. The last thing you do during the day is to check your phone. You don't, I mean, you still have the phone to call people, but more often you will text them or email them, FaceTime them. And your social interaction, both personally and professionally, whether you like it or not, are heavily live on a digital platform, which so-called social media. No matter that, no matter which platform you're on, right? So we as a human being today are a digital first generation, unfortunately, whether you like it or not. And so if you're thinking about that, then I think everyone should ask the question is, so why my project or my organization or my event will not consider anything digital first. When we say digital first strategy, it doesn't mean digital only. I think that is a very important thing to understand is digital first simply just mean before you lay down your event plan, you need to think about how your audience are doing today and how you can engage or starting to interact with them before the events. And then during the event, how would you continue to engage with them? And then also, how would you continue to engage with them after the events, right? The touch point are very different, but they kind of all leading to you should have some sort of digital touch point with them pre, post, and during, because everyone is living on a heavy digital world. And if you think about that back to the events itself is I totally get it. And for a lot of the organization and a lot of my client actually, this year, they are very, very keen on hosting in person. And I totally get it. And because I will too, right? Because because that was a direct feedback from our audience. All our customer or our member or our audience are asking and sending very clear signal is we want to meet. After 2 years, we haven't met each other, and then or we meet each other every day, but only on screen. I wanted to see them in person, right? So the signal was very clear, and so you should to do in person. But it doesn't mean that you should just kind of throw everything you did for the past 2 years virtually in the garbage, right? If we kind of remember, for the past 2 years, we kind of built a bigger audience because of its virtual is more accessible. I will assume for many organizations that the events that they host in general, I'm not saying everyone, but in general attract more people than they used to as an in-person. So today you're throwing back the in-person events. Then how about all those people who attend virtually but they cannot? They just physically or financially not able to make it in person. You just forget them again? And then also, I think during the period of time, you're actually expanding your database, not because it's more easy to access, but it's also because you actually attract a more diverse audience. Also, in general, in the past, when it's in-person event, you probably only attract a certain demographic because of various financial or time consuming, right? But during the virtual, you can actually attract way more. You see a lot of the emerging audience, a lot of the younger generation, a lot of the kind of the low third or kind of like the developing countries attendee. Those are people are all talented, smart, and they probably are all very engaging during with the past year. It's just kind of a waste that you throw them away, right? And I think last but not least, we also find that after 2 years, everyone are more used to this, right? I think we are used to a video conference call more than before. A lot of your audience, their life also turned upside down. Don't forget about that, right? A lot of audience suddenly are fully remote working, like me, and a lot of audience are, starting actually during the pandemic, decided starting a family, and then now suddenly is living the parenthood, or their kids is now living with them, and or they did change jobs. So there's a lot of changing for us personally, in a personal level, and those should all be taken into consideration when you throwing back the events, that you shouldn't do everything what you just did 2 years ago. It's not because it's easier, it is, but it's simply because your audience might change already. The thing they like 2 years ago might not be the case again. And I think that is kind of why digital first strategy is important, because with the digital first strategy, is actually put your audience at the center strategy. Thinking about what your audience are consuming behavior right now are, what is the value your audience are looking for right now, and then tailor your offer or your event design to them. And that is actually digital first strategy.
Okay, I see that you are very open to different formats, and maybe you will say that everything depends on the audience. However, I can't not to ask about your preferences. Do you like more virtual or physical events, or maybe hybrid? And do you
Well,
have any
I think
preferences?
for me is like I said, I don't think it should be a choice, because I think
Mm-hmm.
all of them are good. Like I like to attend, like for example, I just
Mm-hmm.
attended an in-person event yesterday, locally in my community, but I also participate to virtual event this week as well, that I'm
Mm-hmm.
in that I am able to interact with another set of community that is actually not living in my neighborhood. So
Mm-hmm.
I like them both, and I don't think it should be a choice or a preference. I think, in my opinion, eventually, uh, every event should be like a hybrid event, but it shouldn't. It's not the hybrid event we envision right now, which is, I think a lot of people have the assumption that hybrid event mean the both virtual interaction and then the in-person
Mm-hmm.
interaction need to happen hand in hand. They need to be happening at the same time. You kind of have the two track going on at the same time, and therefore it become a big logistic challenge and also
Mm-hmm.
financial challenge, right? Because hybrid event usually mean a bit more investment, because you kind of throw in two things at once in a lot of people's mind. But that is not really what a hybrid, that shouldn't be the only format of
Mm-hmm.
hybrid, right? Hybrid event can also mean a lot of smaller pod around the world. So they are very small, and you had a big virtual audience. So this is format called hub and spoke or satellite. Or hybrid event can simply be on-sync hybrid event. That means you have the in-person event on a set day, but you have the virtual component before or after. If it's a before, it's almost like the road to the event type of format. Then you
Yeah.
engage people already in advance. And then the after is really more like the 365 community, right? It's like after you using the event to kicking off the excitement so people can continue engage. So there are a lot of different format in there. And for me, the only definition for hybrid event is actually, um, you don't forget everyone. That is actually the
Mm.
only definition for me, is
Yeah,
your
that
event is
sounds
accessible.
good.
Yeah, everyone is able to participate, whether they are, whether their preference, and whether it's virtual or in person.
Um, and in terms of marketing and sales metrics, how do you think is there any difference between virtual and physical events? Like, what can be more effective if we talk only about business, like about engagement rate and about conversion from the participant to lead or to sale, um, can can be one format more effective than the other, or it depends on the some other things.
I think, I mean, it's probably the same answer like I did, is which one is my
Mm-hmm.
preference. I think, if we're looking at, the ROI or the marketing result, from both virtual and in person, what we should looking at is it shouldn't be which one is better, but it should
Mm-hmm.
be which result makes sense for you right now. I will say, in a virtual setting, in general, it's
Mm-hmm.
probably more easy for you to collect a good quantity of leads.
Mm-hmm.
And the in a virtual setting, I think the lead generation is more smooth transition into sales funnel. if you are doing, for example, drip campaign, or you are doing
Mm-hmm.
if your follow up is heavily automated, the follow up process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A virtual event will really make the process seamless because you click it. Basically, it's like you click something and then that already triggered the next 5 action, right? And so it's easy to set up that way.
Mm-hmm.
But in-person event is still, but the value for in-person event is that human interaction connection, and then I think the in-person event do offer that value of the touch and smell feeling, which at least for now you still can really fully get that virtually. Is to the touch, the if for example you go into a trade show, you're able to touch the
Mm-hmm.
product, you're able to putting on the product and try it, to see it, to smell it, and then also to walk on the hallway and talk to the
Mm-hmm.
colleagues that you never met or you just met virtually. But I think we all can relate right now is the virtual communication had its benefit, but
Mm-hmm.
it is very different for in-person communication. And then nothing wrong with either one. Like the virtual one, I will say is usually is more direct and more objective. So for example, I feel the meeting I did virtually is actually usually more effective because when I turn on my camera, I usually already have a mindset is I'm here for this meeting, and you just mentally had the agenda go. For in
Mm-hmm.
person, it's more easy for you to sidetrack. You have a group of 5 people together, and then the other two, me and you might just already talking other things, and then things starting to kind of sidetrack. But in-person event will spark idea that if you do brainstorming, in-person event is probably we will see a lot of different result, right? So back to your question on sales, I think in-person event is where the sales can nourish their leads.
Mm-hmm.
You turn the leads into a real person, or you are able to have those unofficial conversation with your potential, either at the bar or on the street, at the coffee, whatever it is to really know what exactly he or she is thinking, or what exactly they are needed. Because a lot of the time that the real challenge they are facing might not be appear on the paper or in the RFP. It's probably
Mm-hmm.
something you need to ask a few follow-up questions then to discover. And those are the benefit for in person. So it might take a little bit longer in terms for lead to into the funnel, but I
Mm-hmm.
would say the conversion rate probably was in some ways higher in the in-person, because you kind of is you probably for good sales that's why a lot of the sales are struggle during pandemic, that they are not
Mm-hmm.
able to, I can't like feel my client because for the past I don't know, like for the past 200 years, that is kind of how we train salespeople, is to
Mm-hmm.
observe and signal what are the kind of the trigger point for your customer, and then go in and close it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That require a lot of the I'm seeing you right in front of me. What is your body language? What are you saying and what are you not saying? Those are the things that virtual cannot really replacing, at least yet. And
Mm-hmm.
so that is kind of what like so in the end, you need both. But you should consider but then you should set your expectation very clear. I think we now at the stage we can do that. Is your in-person event is not, you're not looking for generate massive lead for your in-person event. Maybe you can do that on the virtual setting, but you
Mm-hmm.
might throw in the in-person event for those maybe the top tier lead that you want to turn them into a
Yeah.
product, right? For example, so
Mm-hmm.
at least, and then that is what the digital first strategy come into place, is because you are not kind of stuck in the kind of the nonstop loop of should I go virtual, should I go in person, which one I should choose. But that shouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
the question. The question should be why I'm doing this. and how can I, and once I decide what I'm doing it, and how can I make sure the audience that I want to be there here.
Since virtual events just can be a little more easier to organize, since we have many platforms as Beams where we can just click and make the whole event. There is a series that virtual events should be free or very cheap. What do you think about it? Is it true or not?
Well, I think what I disagree the question is, I don't think throwing virtual event is easy. And
Mm-hmm.
I think for everyone who listened to for this episode probably will agree.
Mm-hmm.
Throwing virtual event is not easy, and especially for a lot of the event professionals who are growth and nourish
Mm-hmm.
their skill in the in-person, virtual event is probably harder because it's a bit more, you do need a little bit more production knowledge or skill or mindset. It's really more like directing a show or a TV program. It's the interaction is very different, so it is not that easy. And so that come to whether virtual events should be free or not. In my opinion, I think they shouldn't. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's like you throwing an event. You have food and beverage, venue cost, blah blah blah. Therefore, you need to charge, right? For virtual event, it doesn't mean you don't have any costs, right? The virtual platform, if you want a good function and like all the premium feature to be displayed, you do need to pay, right? To the
Mm-hmm.
virtual platform, you're doing the production of this streaming, you do need to pay as well, right? So there are costs associated. And then also at the end is why you're throwing the events, right? Because I will assume most of the organizer who listen to this podcast, that you're throwing event is, well, there's an objective behind it. If
Mm-hmm.
your goal is to actually make profit, then you shouldn't make your event free, right? That should be part of your pricing strategy. You probably, like me, I think it's fair that you charge less because your cost is less. But that doesn't mean it should be free, unless your objective is very different, right? So it all comes down to what your objective is. If throwing the event free that will achieve better what you want to achieve, then that is what you do it.
Yeah, but you can just use it as a marketing channel and
Yeah.
not earn money on these events, but just
Mhm.
attract people. Um, and I want to ask something about the agency you're working at. What percent of virtual events do you organize? Is a majority or half and half with in-person ones? And what types of events do you help to organize? And something like that about your clients and formats and their goals, probably.
Yeah, so I think for Dahlia Plus agency, I would say right now we are quite balanced in terms for
Mm-hmm.
if you're looking at percentage of virtual or in person. I think we have clients who are doing both. I will say
Mm-hmm.
virtual slightly higher than the in person. It is one of the core reason is because Dahlia Plus agency was actually a digital first agency.
Mm-hmm.
We start doing virtual events like 10 years ago.
Oh.
So we are not like new to the virtual space. We have been, at the time we call webinar or virtual
Mm-hmm.
experience. We have been doing that for both small scale to large scale for a long time before pandemic. And of course, so during the pandemic, Dahlia Plus has been extremely busy. Because that was our expertise, and then we have
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the client transition their event experience throughout this difficult time. And right now, I think we are happy to see a lot of our clients are able to kind of throw back to what they do best, which is putting on a very amazing in-person experience. And but we also see that, but that also means that a lot of time our client are now they are really lack of resource in terms for to even consider how to maintain the value of their virtual offering. And so that's kind of what we are coming into place right now is we have been helping a lot of our clients. It's almost like their backseat team or like their behind the curtain team is they spend all their energy and focus on putting this in person or the grand return for a lot of the company or organization this year, but they kind of let us handle their virtual experience because they understand it is still important, but they just don't have the capacity to do it. So we're happy to help anyone who listen to this podcast have the similar situation is you just maybe you're short of staff, maybe you are just have too many things you need to deal with, that you understand, you agree with what I just say, that you shouldn't forget all those audience virtually, but you just lack of resource or strategy to maintain that relationship. That's where you can contact us, and we're happy to see how we can help.
It's very interesting that you were in the virtual events longer before the pandemic, and maybe you can compare how the industry changed. How was it before pandemic and how it's now?
I think, to be fair, in general, I will say it haven't changed much or changed enough. The biggest change is, I think, are two things. Number one is the technology today we are using is having advanced year after year. I still remember back in 2020, 2015, 2016 when I was helping a virtual event back then actually, and it was the virtual experience wasn't that good. It's simply because the internet bandwidth was slow, and the video conferencing is a lot of work. We are missing a lot of the SaaS platform like what we have right now to make it more accessible and easy and still in a high quality like StreamYard, this one, right? So the technology right now, and then the smartphone has advanced technology today are able to allow us to experience to have a better virtual experience. And I think the second part is and I will say that is what some of the good thing coming out from the pandemic over the past 2 years. Again, don't get me wrong. It was a horrible situation, and no one would like them to happen again.
Yeah, sure.
If you really looking for something good coming out from it, I think is the industry in general have been adapting into the virtual space, and then I think a lot of the people realize it's actually not that bad, or a lot of able to turn things around and create something meaningful in the virtual environment, because whether they like it or not, they did create those meaningful experience, and now that experience will not go away, right? It's not like you're throwing an amazing virtual experience last year and suddenly you just forget them this year. You can choose not to do it, but you will not forget it, right? And those are all the good things, right? Because that is how I will say the industry or in general moving forward is we are continue transform ourselves to adapt into the reality we are in, but also continuing to upskill or changing our mindset in a way that toward a more positive future. So I think we're doing not bad.
You're a co-founder of Eventproof's Breaksheet.
Yes.
Tell me, please, briefly about this project and how can event organizers benefit from it?
Definitely, and so appreciate you bring this up. Is so I am a co-founder for kind of a community-driven project called Eventproof's Breaksheet, and you're hearing correctly. It's about us coming together and be naughty and breaking things. And if you want to learn more, simply go to eventprosperation.com. That is kind of,
I
you will
did.
be able to learn more about our experience. To a nutshell, it is a community of event professional, mainly people who need to organize the event, but we do have kind of all sort of different professional come into place. But the goal is to come together and test out and try out new technology. And it's starting during the pandemic when all the planners are in desperate need to know what's out there, what they can do in terms of all those virtual technology products. And I think a lot of us are frustrated with the status sales demo process. And I mean, I got it. Like you kind of need to go through the sales demo for a lot of the people, but for us, it's sometimes it's kind of getting a bit daunted and frustrated. The question we want to ask didn't get asked, or we find out a lot of the limitation until we sign a contract. And then therefore we kind of come out to this concept is we come to tech company like you guys and say, hey, I have a group of people who need to buy technology. They are your potential customer. But instead of you gave us a demo, how about you gave us access to your product? And we're gonna just play around with it. And if we like it, we will tell you. If we find something not so good, we will tell you as well. And so it become quite a interesting experience. I won't say everyone like it, especially from the tech company side, because it's really, and I think it's a little bit uncomfortable, right? Is you are giving your product for people, actually for your potential customer to tear it apart, and that's just not a comfortable environment, I think, for a lot of the tech company. But for those who are enjoying the process, we did see some really good result. It's really about adapting the open mindset, right? Willing to take critique, constructive critique from their potential buyer. And I think we see those companies actually actually able to get more business from our community, because that's where the trust being built, and they take our feedback very seriously. They update their product toward our feedback. In general, that make their product a stronger product in the market, especially in today's if you're looking at the event tech space, it is a very chaotic. It's like after the tsunami situation right now, is like everything is like kind of all over the place. Everyone is screaming and worry about how they can survive and where they stand. I think that even made us to be a more unique space. Highly encourage for those who host events and who want to join this army. Welcome to go to eventprosperation.com. You can sign up for our newsletter. Our next event is actually in June. We are throwing our next events. And for those tech companies who might listen or come across this webinar, and you're brave enough and want to give your also, we're also open to discussion.
Yeah, and who are those event profs who evaluate the projects? Is it the same group of experts, or are there different people every time?
So it is, I would say it is different people every time, but it is, we have like consistent people coming back to attend. So this is basically what we do is we basically throw our events. And so in general, we will attract probably 30 to 200 people. It's really depending on how we market the event, and also depending on when. And then I think the most important is actually a sign to the tech company is if their product is attractive enough for people who want to try it. So our event have been ranging various in terms for sizes. But within all those people, we do have consistent people who attend regularly every time we're putting out together.
It seems you are deeply in the technologies and maybe even innovations. I want to ask you about the tech solutions that you were impressed by. maybe you see something at the events or just learned from somebody about interesting tech solutions?
So I will say, like, for me, like, innovation should have been something really out of the blue. For me, innovation sometimes it's coming to place that is random or even normal, but you kind of put them in a place that they suddenly kind of surprise. There are two things that I was working on for the past 2 years that I think
Mm-hmm.
is still a very cool concept that um, I, I mean, I still, and it was a good result. So one is to make the trade show floor not just trade show. So I did a conference a couple of years ago. It's a typical scientific conference
Mm-hmm.
with a trade show component. So they usually attract, the company who in their scientific field. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we decide to expanding the trade show and make it to be like a festival. So we actually build partnership with local art community, and build partnership with local school community, and build partnership with local environmental community. And then we actually turn the trade show floor to not just for the scientific component, but also had a lot of the general public content. And we turned the trade show to be, I think we open, the trade show is 5 days, and then we open 3 days for general public. And so that alone is, I think, what was a very unique situation for that association specifically. It definitely created a different dynamic, and second, it created more reason for people to come, because when you do trade show, the biggest challenge you have before is you don't have people, like, people visit once and they kind of done. So we are able to create multiple reasons for them to keep coming. And
Mm-hmm.
then the third one is you actually diverse your revenue stream, because now you open a gate to a lot of different potential. It's almost like kind of your, well, actually, thinking about it, is we actually, I would say, is almost the e-commerce concept. We actually run the trade show design as the e-commerce concept, which is a
Mm-hmm.
diverse, different attract, and figure out a way to have your audience to stick on your site. So I think that was one I remember very fondly. There's another project that I was working on earlier. Haven't seen that one, is haven't live yet. But once it live, I think it would be very cool to see. It's another conference in a very beautiful country outside North America. Um, we that is kind of come down to the digital first, is we identify the audience are eager to meet,
Mm-hmm.
because every 2 years, but a lot of them are not able to, but whether financial wise or their profession wise, that they probably not even allowed to leave the country. So we decide to uh, uh, make the events at the destination we choose smaller. So they typically attract 2,000-3,000 people. I think the target is less than 1,000, even just a couple hundred. But with that event on site, we're gonna turn them into an incentive trip. So instead of conference program, it's actually more a trip, because we identify, like, yes, it is still a conference. People still want to come and learn, but they probably mainly want to come and hug people and drink and party with their colleague. So let's just make that as a priority for the in-person. But then we designing a robust virtual program that is across a month, actually, that become almost like a digital festival things that will open before the in-person, but also extending after the in-person. And that is where most of the education component happen, is people still able to learn, and but more in the way that they are more comfortable or they are familiar with. And then we combine that with a bit more production. So the goal is to make it almost like a Netflix situation. I think Netflix is a bad example right now, because everyone's jumping out of Netflix, Apple Plus or Disney Plus. That actually with content that make you want to enjoy. And actually also create some FOMO for them to watch those people who are on site.
Mm-hmm.
So you're watching a reality show, So that will hopefully that will trigger then want to attend the next in-person one, which will be in a 2 year.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, to be fair, like, are they any special? No, they are just they are probably the idea or strategy many people are using. But it makes sense for the situation I described, is because we kind of back to what's the purpose, right?
Yeah. Please give one advice to the event organizers in 2022.
Well, I would say my one advice to the event organizer in 2022 is to don't be afraid to try new things, and don't be afraid to fail. I think what we are all A-type person, and we all want everything perfect. But the reality is, without failing, you won't know how to make it perfect. So my advice for you is, give yourself permission to try, and actually celebrate the failure.